What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast. Lot going on in the football world. Stories flying around left and right. Holdouts, hold-ins, contract talks, players being cleared, players not being cleared. So we got a lot going on, and we'll discuss it today. So I'm going to hit on from Trent Williams to Dak to Cousins to Russell Wilson, little calf injury, Jamar Chase, something weird going on there. Probably has to do with money. And also the mailbag, fire in there whenever you want. At John Middlekauff is my Instagram. At John Middlekauff is my Instagram. DMs wide open. Easiest way to ask a football question. Just trekked it down from Lake Tahoe. Now at my my mother's house. Technically, it's kind of like my brother's office now. So had some football takes. Wanted to get them out before the weekend. And by next week, we'll just hit the ground running because pads will start coming on. Real football is about to start being played. We're not that far away from the Hall of Fame game, so buckle up because football, I think it's now officially here. I've watched enough videos. I watched before we drove, and she was getting her stuff ready today. Jim Harbaugh mic'd up. It was fantastic. Jim feels a lot different than the guy that I was around for a couple years when I used to go to Niner stuff in 13 and 14. Definitely mellowed out, happy guy, new lease on life. Maybe it's because he's now a champion, but Chargers fans, I don't know how many there are, but people that obviously follow just Jim Harbaugh, it's easy to, like, I'm a Chargers guy now. Like, I'm going to root for that franchise because I'm a Jim Harbaugh guy, and it's fun to watch him happy, and they're going to be a problem. I'll promise you that. I'm not saying Super Bowl this year, but they're going to be a real team. And that couldn't be said with Brandon Staley leading the charge. So before we dive into some football, sorry I ran it there for a minute. You know, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and most importantly, the official ticketing app of this podcast. Listen, do you want to get outside? Do you want to do something fun? You guys have heard me say this over and over. Do you want to go to a concert? Do you want to go enjoy yourself? Put a smile on your face? Have a few brewskis, maybe have a cocktail, take your wife, take your girlfriend, take your son, take a I don't know, someone in business, someone you're trying to woo for a partnership, and do it on us at Game Time because it doesn't get any easier no matter what you want to do. Like I said, games, football, right around the corner, concerts, comedy shows. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I did do a podcast yesterday, and news broke that the best left tackle in the NFL is officially holding out. Now, I had a take a couple days ago in regards to another player they have who's holding in that I thought it was the right move. That Brandon Ayuk, they've had a very contentious offseason. He's been very emotional. Feels like he's requested 7 trades, posted 80 million things on social media, and has been all over the map. And John and Kyle are like, yeah, see you at camp, buddy. We got an offer on the table, and that's still materializing. There was just a video from my guy, Matt Barrows, of like him walking into John Lynch's office, I think after practice. So clearly they're trying to get it done. Well, today, probably a little bit of an issue for Brandon Ayuk that he's no longer the priority because Trent Williams is one of those rare guys that is objectively agreed upon from the analytical community, from the eye test fan community, from the scouting community, from the coaching community, and most importantly, the other players, his peers. Best left tackle in the game, non-quarterback, easily one of the best players in the game. And it's not like he's in the prime of his career. He's like 35 years old. He wants more money. In my initial take, don't blame him at all. Had the same take earlier this offseason when Christian McCaffrey said the same thing. Under no circumstances can I play if I'm Trent Williams and I'm the 5th highest paid left tackle. And honestly, these left tackle numbers per year feel a little off. Because who's more important? If the 49ers this year had to choose one player, Brandon Ayuk or Trent Williams, and listen, this is not a criticism of Brandon Ayuk. He's an awesome player. He's a winning player. He deserves to be paid a lot of money. I can promise you this. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan wouldn't even hesitate. It would be Trent Williams. Now, ultimately, they don't have to make that decision. They get to keep them both. But what happened with Christian McCaffrey? It's like, well, I no longer have guaranteed money. You didn't sign me to this contract. I'm scheduled to make like $11 million. I'm sorry, that's laughable. And they bumped him up, and it's like $18, $19 million this year. Rightfully so. Good move. If I'm Trent Williams, one, this contract that I'm currently playing on is what I got. The 49ers gave him this contract because he had hit free agency several years ago. And it actually came down to a bidding between Andy Reid and the Chiefs and the 49ers. And the 49ers, I mean, they had no choice. They had to give him a large amount of money. I think at the time was $60 million guaranteed, which seems like peanuts now, 20 a year, which again, if I'm Trent Williams and I get like comps work for 90% of players, like this guy got this is what you get. He's a little better. You're a little worse. You're a little better. He's a little worse. It's all based on that. There are certain players in this league, a guy like Trent Williams, where I go, I don't really give a shit. If you really want me to play this year, I have no guaranteed money. Like, this is my number. Maybe it's $28 million. So I'm going to need an $8 million raise. Like, that's got to happen. Now, I went to years of practices with Trent Williams involved. Training camp for him isn't exactly the Junction Boys. This isn't exactly 1950, 1960 Roll Tide, Alabama, Bear Bryant. Listen, he's one of those guys who probably could play an NFL game 365 days a year. So training camp for him, I'm not saying it's not necessary. Of course, it's necessary for any player, but he ain't repping every single practice. I mean, he gets a lot of days off. He gets a lot of plays off. They treat him like they should. One of the most valuable assets, who's an older player who they need. And the only thing when it comes to Trent Williams is like week one, he's on my left tackle and we want him healthy. But listen, when you're at his level, you got leverage because you need me more than I need you. I'm super rich. I've made a boatload of money. Now, I'm a great player. I like playing football, and I plan on playing football, hopefully for the Niners' sake, the next couple of years because they have zero answer at that position. And it's not like they're going to be flush with cash because they're paying all these other guys to go sign a left tackle. And let's face it, left tackles never hit the open market who are any good. It was very rare that Trent Williams was even in that position. But I don't blame him. And if I was him, I'd ask for a massive raise. And they go, what about all these? I don't, Christian Darrisaw. If I was Trent Williams, I'd be like, who's that? What? I compare myself to Jonathan Ogden, to Walter Jones. Like that's the way I'm discussed. Not like the hot young commodity in the NFL. And that's like, this is going to be a complicated, this is part of what makes this job so difficult. It's why I've said forever, I give John Lynch a lot of credit for doing this. Just like when Steve Kerr signed up, he was already super rich. He was already super successful. He had a bunch of rings. And he's like, you know what? I want to coach. Now, you could say it was a great situation. It is still a lot of added stress that is not there if you're not doing it. And John Lynch, same thing. Already a champion. Now he's in the Hall of Fame. He had a great job at Fox, was making seven figures. And he's like, you know what I want to do? Deal with Brandon Ayuk's agent when I'm on vacation. You know what I want to do? Show up to training camp and have to deal with my star, future Hall of Fame left tackle who needs a massive raise, and I have to balance all the books, and we already have a high price. Like, I'm sorry, most human beings would not want to do that, but he's just one of those guys that likes his feet in the fire. He likes the action. The juice is the squeeze, right? So I just think that this team, like all these guys, high-level winning players, most people are going to pick this team, if you're not picking them to be in the Super Bowl, to be right there in the mix, in the Final Four or Final Two in the NFC. But this type of stuff you deal with year after year. You get guys that want money, right? It's like, what did Howie have happen this offseason? Like Hassan Reddick's like, I want a raise. Now, I'm not comparing Hassan Reddick to Trent Williams. But it's like, we don't want that headache. See ya. Joe Douglas is like, yeah, I'll take that headache, and I don't even plan to pay him. So it's just,
training camp, man, I always thought like the season, I've never been as stressed out. Now I'm a high anxiety guy to begin with, like just my blood, runs hot, I would say, like most people, or else you die. But you know what I mean. I run hot. That stress of training camp, of guys getting injured, of working out guys, of guys not living up to the hype, of people being angry, players just it's a stressful time. You have to monitor the league like crazy because guys are constantly getting cut. Like once the season starts, the structure of the season is very mapped out. Obviously, you might play on a Thursday or Sunday night or Monday, but like every week's kind of the same. And if you have one injury, you just work out one position. It's kind of a fire drill during training camp. And let's face it, the 49ers got a lot going on. I mean, the Cowboys got a lot going on, but they always got a lot going on. And in fairness, like Dallas is choosing not to extend Dak Prescott right now. The 49ers want Trent Williams to be happy. They want Brandon Ayuk to be happy. I wonder if the Cowboys are like, yeah, let's just see how Dak responds. Let's see if he can answer the bell because he has in the last 3 years. And I think when you look at the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, let's face it, CeeDee Lamb does not view himself in Brandon Ayuk's category, right? He just does not. He views himself with Justin Jefferson. Now, whether that's correct or not, we're talking an astronomical amount of money that he, I'm sure, is seeking. And this gets pretty complicated. And I started thinking today, actually, when I was driving home from Tahoe, maybe the Cowboys' plan is this. We go all in. Obviously, we're going to have to pay CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons a ton of cash. And that is a huge part of our core moving forward. And we'll figure out the quarterback. And then I thought, isn't that kind of what the Raiders are doing right now? They got Max Crosby, who's a star. They got Devontae Adams, who's like a Hall of Famer. And they have no quarterback. And no one really takes them that seriously, right? They have really good players at a bunch of different positions. But I don't think you'll meet a soul who's not a Raider fan who would pick them to make the playoffs because how could you? They don't have a quarterback. And this is the hard part about the Dallas situation. And this is why when you get the Dak Prescotts, you saw it forever in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, you just kind of keep riding it out because you are terrified to ever be in a position where it's like, God, we got some sweet all-pro impact players. It's like, oh, who's your quarterback? You're like, Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. You're like, you're not winning shit. I mean, that's kind of the way it goes. And I could see if you were Dallas, because it's easy. And listen, I've said it, like, just move on. Let him hit free agency. It's easy to say that. And he's got flaws clearly in January, but he's still better than most. And what would they do? Like, it's like, what's their answer going to be? Trey Lance? Kyle Shanahan couldn't get rid of him quick enough. Kyle Shanahan bailed on Trey Lance like 18 months ago. So that's not an option. And I know they're going to play him a bunch this preseason, but he's just not that good. It's just a fact of life. So to me, when you look at the Cowboys, you go, feels like they're kind of stuck. And it could be one of those positions, like if they just win a playoff game, it's like, oh, Dak threw multiple interceptions in the second round. It's like, okay, let him hit free agency. And then what are you doing? Because there aren't really any options ever. And this is where CeeDee Lamb kind of has him by the balls. Like he's going to get a ton of money. It's like Micah Parsons, same thing. Going to get a ton of money, like a ton of money. It's like, well, Dak Prescott, because of the position he plays, even if we all agree that he's not Josh Allen, he's not Mahomes, obviously, not Lamar, still is going to command what, $210 million guaranteed. So the three of those guys would have sent, it'd be like an NBA team. It'd be like, yeah, we got 3 or 4 guys and a bunch of other minimum players and draft picks. That's kind of what the Cowboys would have to do because of the positions those guys play. It's one thing I've always said about the Niners. They've gotten very lucky that 2 of their best players are, over the last 4 years that are on huge contracts are a middle linebacker and a tight end. And those guys' value doesn't exceed $15 million a year. Where if Fred Warner had been a corner or a wide receiver or the right tackle, their books would look a lot different. And George Kittle, who we'll see, I mean, last year he was clearly banged up. They show in receiver. Like the difference of him playing tight end and wide receiver is probably the difference of $7-8 million a year minimum. So that's not the case with the Cowboys. Their best players are pass rusher, wide receiver. we could debate it, but I mean, obviously Dak is one of their best players, quarterback. It's like, gee, how do we do this? And it becomes a problem, and it becomes a problem fast financially. Now, no one, you can be like, I always hear media members say this, like, I'm not going to cry for owners. It's not even about that. It's like, there's a salary cap. You got to build your team, and it can be very complicated.
Forget what the calendar says. Football season is right around the corner. And that means Best Ball Week at DraftKings isn't far behind. Here's what you need to know. DraftKings Best Ball Millionaire Contest is their biggest fantasy contest ever. We're talking 15 million guaranteed prize pool with that's right, 2 millionaires being crowned for the first and second place. If you're a set it and forget it type, I know I am, then Best Ball is for you. No waiver wires, no roster management, bigger rosters, so injuries will not ruin your season. Only the draft, and that's it. You're set for the year. Some of you might have heard I won $18,000 a couple weeks ago at the U.S. Open. It's an incredible high. But $15 million in prize pool, how do you beat that? Multiple millionaires crowned with winning this. I can't even imagine the high being in the mix. And like they said, no roster management, injuries won't impact you because you got bigger rosters. Still not convinced? Check this out. This year, DraftKings is offering everyone a draft one, get one special. Your $20 entry fee scores you a bonus ticket. Get ready for Best Ball Week at DraftKings. Download the DraftKings app and use the code JOHN, that's code JOHN, for all customers who enter the NFL Best Ball 15 Millionaire Contest to get a bonus ticket. Only during Best Ball Week, only on DraftKings.
Russell Wilson missed practice as of Thursday, recording this. I think they said with a little calf strain. I'm not acting like I'm no doctor. I don't know. I'm not acting like he's out for the season or anything. But I kind of assume like this is going to be a player that my expectations are little to none. And anyone that argues, they're like, look at his stat line last year. It's like, guys, we all sat on the couch over the course of the first couple months and watched that team play. And we've all seen Russell Wilson in his heyday, and it doesn't even resemble the same player. Now, I've said it over and over, totally understand why the Steelers would want him for, I don't know, $1 million. I would have done that too. But I've said consistently, just because, like many people, I follow the NFL very closely. I've watched this league for a long time. We have seen situations, like most situations in football, copy themselves over and over. Like the Patriots, I can see that thing coming from a mile away. Jacoby Brissett is our starter. Jacoby Brissett is going to play, and he is going to mentor our young quarterback. What happens week 7 when they're 2-5 and lifeless and the crowd's booing and Robert Kraft's like just getting shit on in the media? I'll tell you, Drake May will start. We've seen that exact scenario take place in my adult life. I don't know, 20 plus times. So with Russell Wilson, let's face it, he's not the same player. And I don't know if Justin Fields is any good. He definitely hasn't been in terms of a passer. But part of why you pay coaches a lot of money is to see if you can get the best out of a guy. And we know what Russell is, a diminishing asset, a guy that you can't consistently win with, because that's been the case now for 3 straight years. Justin Fields, listen, it's been a rocky road so far early in his career. But if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm not. But I can put myself in people's shoes and go, I would want to see Justin Fields. Like, I want to see what that looks like. We just hired Arthur Smith, who had a ton of success with a guy that everyone laughed at in Ryan Tannehill. Was the guy's backup. Within a couple years, they're winning playoff games. So if I'm a Steeler fan, I want to see Justin Fields and see what we can do with him. I would say one of the biggest stories in recent memory in the draft, I'm not just talking this year, I'm talking a handful of years, was Michael Penix going to the Atlanta Falcons. And part of it is the organization, which has not been winning, the fact that they have a ton of young players on offense. It was pretty clear to go, this could get weird, and this could get weird fast. Who is Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, who no one knows is any good, and Drake London going to connect more with? Someone who's their age or a 37-year-old Colts cash guy coming off an Achilles injury? Now, I do think the conversation, we can pump the brakes on it at least for training camp, because he was officially cleared today, and that'd be Kirk Cousins. And the way I thought it would get weird, which would be like, what if he's not able to go in practice and Michael Penix, the first couple weeks of training camp, is taking the reps? And we all know, I guess I'm assuming you guys watched him at Washington at least one or two times. I mean, he was in the national championship, but even the previous game against Texas, his deep ball is beautiful. I mean, it's a thing of beauty. It's like Russell Wilson circa 2016. That ball goes up in the air. You're like, God, that is a gorgeous spiral. Now, Kirk Cousins can just take the reps. Now, ultimately, training camp ends and you start playing games, and then things could change. But at least for the next month, assuming he stays healthy and assuming he has no setbacks, that he gets to take the starting reps, attempt to build a chemistry. And let's face it, there is a lot of pressure on Kirk Cousins to play well and play well early. Because this gets back to the Steeler thing. This gets back to what I said about the Patriots. Fans in the NFL have a lot of juice because nobody wants to watch a shitty quarterback. No one wants to watch poor quarterback play. And the moment a guy struggles, fair or not, everyone starts chanting for the backup. Everyone does. And a lot of times that does not work out either, but that's the way it goes. So when your backup is an already established, older, whoever, it's one thing. It's another thing when it's wait, Kirk Cousins is off to a really slow start. He's struggling. How about check out the number 8th pick in the draft, who just had an incredible 2 years in college and led his team to the national championship against Michigan. Let's see that guy. I mean, that's a pretty easy conversation to get started. Same thing with Drake May. It's like, yeah, we've kind of seen Jacoby before. I think we're cool with that. Can we test drive the new car? That Drake May guy? I understand it. And owners think a lot like fans, and they definitely listen to them because they're listening to the podcast, they're listening to the radio, they're watching the television shows. Players and coaches at least can lie to you and tell you they don't watch it. Owners don't even lie. I mean, they consume the hell out of it, and rightfully so. I would too if I was them. Last little story of the day. It's kind of fascinating. For a long period of time, now the money was a lot different. I mean, obviously, if you played in the NFL in the 90s and you were a good player, you were still rich relative to society. But Google some of 94 contracts. What was Emmitt Smith making in 94? Or what was, Troy Aikman's contract extension? It doesn't look anything like now. Again, still a lot of money, not the same. So when you're an elite player and you have a ton of money coming, I said this about Jordan Love the other day. I totally understand mitigating. I can't afford that if some guard trips and his 300-pound ass falls on my ankle and it shatters and I got a compound fracture and I never walked the same, and all of a sudden that contract that my agent told me was probably 48 hours away, they just put in the shredder. I'd be like, I don't know I'd jump off a bridge. I mean, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So I get it. I really do. And if you want to hold in, hold out, however, I prefer with young players holding in. I just think it's easier to have good vibes. And it's always easier if you're an employee to be around the people that are in control and have a positive attitude. Those people, let's face it, most people want to work with people they like. And then if those people that they like are also good, talented people and revenue generators and good salesmen or great receivers, they want you around. Most people don't. If you could choose, would I rather work with a positive, upbeat person that I like who's good at his job, or a negative, a-hole, pessimistic individual who's good at his job? We'd all pick the same individual. So it's easy, even though they already know you, to be like, hey, listen, this contract talk is not easy, but I'm going to show up. I'm going to be a good guy. I'm not going to practice, but I just want you to see my attitude. I'm a team first guy. These are the people making the decision. Not NFL Live, not me on this podcast, not any fan on Twitter. It's the GM and the head coach and the owner. So you want to give them as many good vibes as you want. Now, Trent Williams, all that stuff's irrelevant, right? They like him. Obviously, they love the guy. But when you're that good, it doesn't matter. When you get Trent Williams, Deion Sanders, the Ed Reeds, I mean, there's a certain level of player. you can do whatever the hell you want. But I think Jamar Chase, who clearly has a very close relationship with his quarterback, who has been an elite player since he entered the league, uh, is in a weird spot because Mike Brown, I don't know if it was earlier this week. What day is it? Thursday? Maybe it was the end of last week. Maybe it was over the weekend. I kind of lost track of time during this month. Uh, Basically said, like, yeah, we're probably not going to negotiate once football season starts, meaning training camp, just on to football. I wouldn't get ready for a contract. If I was Jamar Chase, I'd be like, what? You can't talk to my agent? Like, you don't have to negotiate with me, but talk to my agent. Well, 2 straight days he hasn't practiced, and his coach was kind of mum about it, but it's pretty easy to figure out because like Brandon Ayuk, like CeeDee Lamb, even though Jamar Chase already rich, he was the 5th pick in the draft. He signed a $30 million contract. He's already made some money. I think the media does a poor job of this. Like, that's life-changing money. If you invest it correctly, that can be generational money. But there is a big difference between $30 million and $120 million. We all acknowledge that. So if I was Jamar Chase, put Mike Brown's feet to the fire a little bit. They've tried to act differently in the Joe Burrow era than they had maybe going back to like Carson Palmer. But what are you going to do? Not play with Jamar Chase? I mean, what are your options? And this is where players do have leverage and can just make it weird because when he does this, it can be weird in the locker room and you just kind of get some weird juju, even though he's not doing anything wrong. Like, hey guys, it's time for a contract extension. But that's clearly happening all over the league. And before we get out of here, Fugazi Friday. I don't have a great Fugazi for you because I don't even know if this is technically a Fugazi. It's just a story. Last Thursday, I got invited to play this golf course about 30 minutes away from where I was staying in Lake Tahoe. And it was in a place called Truckee and elite course. I mean, it's awesome. And family led by Glenn, one of the coolest experiences of my life. Then had us over for dinner. They have a incredible pad. I mean, the pads in this place are 8 to 15, $20 million. Like, Wayne Gretzky, Chris Bryant, John Elway originally had a pad. I think actually Glenn bought the lot from him. It's one of the coolest places I've ever been. There's no debating that. So I take an Uber from the house because we're teeing off at like 2:30. So I Uber from the house. It's about 45 minutes away. Get there, play golf, and they're going to have dinner at their pad after. So I tell Maria, my fiance, like, come meet us. They're like, oh, bring her over. So she comes and meets us. We have dinner. We're hanging out. We're having a good time. Then we leave. And we're headed home about 40-minute drive. And I wasn't even drunk, but Maria was DD. And it was a long drive in the dark at about 11 o'clock at night in the mountains. So you don't have like 4-lane freeways here. It's I wouldn't say sketchy. It's just not a comfortable drive. But we make it home. And listen, I've had fun all day playing golf. She kind of waited for me to text. So it's like I had a lot more fun in that day. And then she has to be the DD. Like I could understand her spirits being a little lower than mine. All of a sudden, we're probably 6-7 minutes. Anyone that's been to North Lake Tahoe knows there's a place called Garwood's, which is awesome restaurant right on the water. It's just always packed in the summer. I mean, they're doing hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue every day. So we get to Garwood's and there are just police everywhere. And I think half the cars in front of us thought it was a DUI checkpoint because they were all flipping U's and going the other way. I'm like, a crash here or something. Let's just see we get there and we roll down the window and the sheriff or the police officer goes, there has been, because there's a ton of construction going on up there, that one of the construction workers had hit a plumbing line and there was thousands of gallons of sewage everywhere. And I guess a ton went into the water as well. I'm like, that sucks. Can we just, again, 5 minutes from home, already drove 40 minutes. Can we just go around it? And the guy's like, actually, you can't. And this road is going to be closed. I said, well, for how long? Like, hour? He's like, I got no clue, but it's going to be a while. He's like, my recommendation would just be to backtrack and go around. And the problem, like I said, with these mountains is there aren't just like side streets to get around. There's kind of one lane. in and out, a lot of places. So we had to go all the way back. And then from there, where we had to go back to probably another 45 minutes, it was a disaster. All because the amount of construction going on in the Lake Tahoe area, which makes sense because in any of these winter mountain places, you can't do construction 4 or 5 months a year. So they have to double down in the summer, and it's bananas because poop. And a lady told us walking the dogs yesterday that she had heard that it was 110,000 gallons of spillage, and around 80 of that went into the water. And when we went swimming, probably a couple days after, and like I said, we're 5 minute drive, so just down the lake. Even Maria was like, God, the lake looks kind of just dirty today. And it had been super clear the whole time. It was clear even the last couple days when we went jet skiing the other day. Jet skiing I'm not a motorcycle guy. Driven a couple dirt bikes in my day, but I've never driven a Harley or any bike like that. There has to be a freedom, like you're just on the open lake on a jet ski. I started thinking, is this what a guy on a Harley feels like? Because it is very just, I don't know, freeing. There's something just special about that feeling, just on the open road or the open sea or the open lake. Just, the jet ski, you go 60 miles an hour on a jet ski, you feel like you're going 90. But yeah, and then we went swimming and the water was really dirty. And then we figured out that, yeah, it might have been poop all over us. So hopefully everyone had a good vacation as well.